Hi, welcome to the Practice Sports Coaching's YouTube channel. The presentation you're about to watch actually took place live at one of our sessions. So can I use this opportunity to invite you to come and join us? We meet every Tuesday and the details are on the screen. If you like this kind of content, can I encourage you to please hit the like, subscribe, and notification bell? That way you'll get notified whenever we release any new content. Let me not take too much of your time. Enjoy today's presentation, and I look forward to seeing you soon. So today, I'm just inflicted obstacle. Now, most of you know what self-inflicted means. I do hope that you can hear me well, and the it's just come up on my system that this the resource is low, but I hope it doesn't interrupt the presentation. So when I'm talking about self-inflicted, and we're talking about self-inflicted obstacles, I'm talking about things that you and I'm not excluding myself here, because I know so many self-inflicted things I do that have been an obstacle to me. So I'm talking about things that I do, you do, whether we do it knowingly or unknowingly. Often it's unknowingly, but the consequence or the effect are quite damaging. So these are things that we do. It's not something else somebody else does, and these are things that most likely will hinder us, will trip us, will cause us to suffer delay, or could actually affect our potential to achieve the goals that we want to do or achieve. Self-inflicted obstacles are things that they obstruct you, just like I've said. And some of the things I'm talking about are things that relate to your personality and your character even. And when I talk about personality, I'm talking about things that everybody can readily see about you. But your character are things that over time, people will become aware if they hang around you long enough. I'm talking about your behavior, attitude, your cognitive limitation. So these are areas that obstacles could be built that can affect you. Now, let me just share a few with you. I think I've got maybe about 8 or 9. I had to look more about myself first, when I was preparing this. Now, this is something I realized, unfortunately, I realized only when I became a coach, that this perfectionism mindset is actually an obstacle for me as an individual, because it affects my ability to work with others, because I tend to expect people to be able to read my mind and understand what I am looking to achieve and figure it out and meet my standards. But if you have that kind of mindset, you will struggle with people, because people will always disappoint you in that regard. So that mindset of having a perfectionist, viewpoint or perspective can actually be an obstacle for you. There's some people, when it comes to preparing something, they'll never release it until it's perfect. They'll never show it off until it's perfect. But sometimes in your attempt to be perfect, you actually sabotage, the things that you're doing that would allow you to grow and excel in that area. So one common obstacle that people have is that perfectionist mindset, and you don't have to be perfect to be out there. Just even thinking about perfectionism, do you know how many cars are manufactured with defaults in them? And the manufacturers know that there are problems with the cars, but they will wait for it to go out first, then they do a recall. I remember I bought myself a Mazda 6. When did I buy it? I bought it in 2014, brand new. And within a month of buying the car, it had a recall. And I thought, how can a brand new car have a recall? Because that's how the manufacturers, they know their issues with it, but they will wait to see and get feedback from people, then go in there and make those changes and adjustment. Another obstacle that people encounter is failing to think ahead. Sometimes we are so focused on the now. And I notice this a lot with entrepreneurs. People are often focused on the now. They're trying to get now sorted out, but they're not thinking ahead. They're not thinking of the next 3 months, the next 6 months, the next year. And when the end of the year comes, they go, oh yeah, well, thank God this year is over. I had a terrible time. I can't wait for the next year. But they repeat exactly the same thing. If you can think ahead, plan ahead, prepare ahead, then you'll realize that you don't actually achieve your goals. You need to spend 40 to 50% of your time working on stuff today. The rest of your time has to be focused on what you're going to do tomorrow, next month, next year. And that's why we're doing the EMP program, because we want to support you in the long term, not just in the now, but in the long term. Another self-inflicted obstacle is our definition of success. How do you define success? Sometimes you measure success based on other people's perspective of success. If there's one thing I cannot stand is hearing people tell me what success looks like because other people have done it. For some people, success is having a turnover of $1 million. For other people, success is having a turnover of $50,000. It doesn't mean their success is less than your success. You're just at a different stage and a different time. But when you set your success, your definition of success, based on other people's perspective and viewpoint, you will trip yourself over, because you're not in the same lane. So you've got to define what success is to you. How do you do, how do you feel you do, what am I even saying? How do you define how well you do compared to your vision and the things that you want to do and achieve? Now, I've put here guilt and shame, and we've talked about self-worth. But to be honest with you, I could say guilt, shame, lack of self-worth, lack of self-love. I could put all of that into this slide, but I've just simply put guilt and shame here to try and hit home the point I want to get across. And that is because you cannot be the best version of yourself if you're carrying the weight of guilt, shame, inferiority complex, imposter syndrome, lack of self-worth, lack of self-love. If you're carrying that weight on you, irrespective of how much you know and how good you are, it will be hard for you to connect with other people. I have seen people who are content to give, but how they came across almost implied like they either didn't believe it or they were carrying a weight on their shoulder. That's a self-inflicted obstacle, limiting your potential. I could go on and on and on. I think I've got about 3-4 more. I'm just going to run through this one. Limiting your potential. Goodness me. How many times have you heard somebody speak down at what they do? How many times have you heard somebody almost demean or belittle the service that they want to offer? And if you, by doing that, you're actually limiting your possibilities, limiting your potential, and you're setting yourself almost to fail. And if nobody can believe in what you do, you have to believe in it. I believe anytime I'm doing something, I'm the best person that can do it. So limiting your potential is a self-inflicted obstacle. Other things include lack of focus, fear, and finally giving up. I had to rush through those ones simply because I want to try and move on. But why is it important that we overcome these self-inflicted obstacles? Firstly, to gain a different perspective. I've been talking to people recently. I don't know if I mentioned this to Lisa, but I've had a few conversations about challenging your values, because you've either grown up or you've acquired certain values that you've accepted as this is your perspective in life. This is how you see things. This is the things you hold dear to you. But I have actually gone back to actually say, do those values reflect the person I want to be? Can those values help me get to where I want to get to? And by overcoming certain self-inflicted obstacles, it gives you an opportunity to gain a different perspective, to see things in a different light. It also enables you to develop skills you never knew you had. And over the last 2 years, I tell you, being a coach has been one of the blessed things that has ever happened to me, because I have learned so much about myself. I have had so many coaching sessions that have made an enormous amount of difference to me as an individual. It stimulates growth. It'll help you develop traits that will serve you, not just in your business area, but in other areas of your life that you can take it into. And finally, it will help you achieve your goals more efficiently. So finally, how do you overcome self-inflicted obstacles? It is not something that happens overnight. One thing you've got to do is you've got to recognize it. You've got to recognize the things that are causing you to stumble. If you don't recognize it, if you don't realize it, if you don't identify it, then you're just going to keep repeating it. And sometimes you might need somebody to talk to them about it, and let them even identify or help you identify what your self-inflicted obstacles are. And you'll probably say, no, that's not me. And it's hard to actually get that kind of feedback, but you need that because you have to recognize it. Then you've got to develop an approach. Talk to a coach, talk to somebody to support you with it, but develop an approach that helps you change your habits, your routines, and your perspective. Then build routines around it, but most importantly, be consistent and don't give up. So, 3 quick questions for us today. Again, these are my questions. Feel free to use yours. Feel free to take it in whatever direction you want to take it in. We're just talking about self-inflicted obstacles. So, first question, what are your self-inflicted obstacles? I am sure you can probably name 3, 4, 5 if you're aware of it. But tell us, what are yours? And how have they impacted your progress? Do you actually realize the impact they've had in your business, in your personal life, in your relationship? So how have they impacted you? And finally, what steps can you begin to take today to develop a different approach?